I was a full-time congregational rabbi in 3 different conservative synagogues in New Jersey. And in 2010, our family came to Glacier Park, and we really fell in love with the area. Fell in love with the park, with life outdoors. We fell in love with Whitefish, and uh, just enjoyed being out in the magnificence of nature. Whitefish is a town in the Flathead Valley, uh, just north of Flathead Lake, and it is this beautiful area surrounded by mountain ranges. Wherever we go and drive in the valley, mountains are there. And Esa Ainai, I look up to the mountains. From where will my help come? My help comes from Adonai. That's like the theme song of our congregation. Whitefish is a ski resort town, a hiking destination, and we are 30 minutes from the west entrance of Glacier Park. It's a town that is recreational 365 days of the year. In the winter, skiing is the big draw. And in the summer, exploring Glacier Park, kayaking, water sports, hiking, rafting. So it's a great place to be. And our family has really enjoyed exploring the area. We came for 2 summers, and every time we returned to New Jersey, we kept joking about moving to Montana. And at one point, my husband and I looked at each other and we were like, well, why not? Why wait to create the life we want? Why wait until retirement? Why don't we now prioritize our family, our health, joy, life in the outdoors, and we'll figure the rest out. So we moved in 2014 to Whitefish. This is my husband hiking in the park. This is my daughter taking in the expanse, and that is a very tall ledge that she is on. The entire family has really enjoyed being here. This is my son. He worked with Montana Conservation Corps one summer, and even our dog is very, very happy with life in Montana. This is the view from our home. This is my view when I wash dishes. And so I think you can see just a little from these pictures what really drew us. And I think you probably understand living in Colorado. We moved, my son started middle school in Whitefish. My daughter started high school in Kalispell. They both had gone to Jewish day schools full time, and then this was their transition to public school. When we visited, we met the Jewish community, went to a Shabbat dinner, was welcomed by people. We knew that there was organized Jewish life in the valley. And there has been organized Jewish life in the Flathead Valley for almost 40 years. At the time we moved, there were 2 different groups. One, of course, had broken off from the other. And though when we moved, both groups were tired and looking for new leadership and direction. So in 2014 and 15, we held a bunch of discussions and activities. And those 2 communities really naturally were one cohesive whole. And after a year of me being here as a volunteer, we formed Glacier Jewish Community, B'nai Shalom, merged those 2 communities back together, but really created a new vision of a congregation that is independent, non-affiliated, egalitarian, and remains a synagogue without walls. In other words, we do not have a building that we meet in. We regularly meet once a month in pre-pandemic, we met once a month in my home for Shabbat morning services. And then all of our other events are held spread throughout the valley. And this past summer, we were going to have a big party celebrating our 5-year anniversary. we were not able to gather outdoors and do that, but we did have a concert with Nefesh Mountain just to celebrate. And if you don't know that Jewish bluegrass group, I highly recommend checking them out. You know, Glacier Jewish Community traditionally meets, well, the community before Glacier Jewish Community, before I came, you know, traditionally met Hanukkah, high holidays, and a few Shabbatot. And these are some pictures from our Hanukkah party. When I came, I expanded the practice to monthly Shabbat services in my home, Friday night dinners at various people's homes, socials in local breweries. And we started an annual Shababacue, and that's probably one of our biggest events. We have 60, 70 people outdoors at the beach at Whitefish Lake, celebrating Shabbat and enjoying each other out in the community. I also expanded the practice beyond Hanukkah and the high holidays, and Purim has become a big party for us. This was last Purim, right after this. We all shut down because of the pandemic. So we have Purim, Passover in different locations around the valley. This is in the Northwest Montana History Museum. I started bringing Holocaust survivors to speak and share their stories at the Flathead Valley Community College. Many, many people in the valley had never, ever met or heard a survivor's story. So I'm really proud that we started that partnership and have continued that. We have a different learning programs, and I even one year had a little study group, a little cheder of boys preparing, learning Hebrew. These guys learned Hebrew, and he prepared for his bar mitzvah. Also have done some, this picture above is interfaith study group, and with two other churches, we partnered and did a learning program during Lent, studying the Exodus and sharing, really teaching the Exodus story and talking about the wilderness story. So interfaith partnership, as well as growing and expanding the Jewish community. Those are just a few characteristics of Glacier Jewish Community. And lastly, we've done some social action. We volunteer with Habitat for Humanity every once in a while. And this was just recently delivering firewood to the Blackfeet Reservation. So I always like pop to that guy and then get shocked, and I have to like figure out my transition. So this is a thriving, growing Jewish community, not a traditional congregation. We don't have a weekly regularity, but we have, you know, like 75%, 80% are full-time people who live in the valley, and the rest are part-time. It used to be for the first couple of decades, the majority of the congregation were part-time, and that would probably also explain the low activity level. But more and more people are moving in the valley, and so they're looking for some sort of Jewish connection, maybe not religious, maybe more social, or maybe their Judaism is defined by social action. I'm one who makes relationships in the community, and got to know the general community and got to know about this man, Richard Spencer, because he decided to build a building downtown Whitefish, and the town was in an uproar. I had never heard of him, but quickly learned all about him. Richard Spencer is one of the leaders of the alt-right. He actually coined the term alt-right. He's one of the leaders, thought leaders of the white nationalist movement. He used to divide his time between Whitefish and Alexandria, Whitefish and Chicago. His mother bought him a home in Whitefish, and he is now living here. He's the one who organized the Torchlit March through UVA campus and was a core planner of the Unite the Right rally. So in 2016, he held a meeting. I'm not sure if you remember this, but he had his National Policy Institute conference in November, and at the end of his speech, he lifted his glass and his right arm straight out and said, "Hail our people, hail Trump, hail victory." He was answered in the room with a Nazi salute. And that really went viral. And our town was greatly distressed because we were being connected with Spencer and did not want in any way for the town to be represented by him. There was a city council meeting called, and you'll see signs that say "Love Lives Here." That's our local human rights organization. They put out a call for people to attend, and a resolution was passed affirming the town's values of diversity and inclusion and condemning the views of the so-called alt-right. So very quickly, yes, you could say we're a tourist town. People are concerned about the view of the town. But first and foremost, these people here, we live here, and we wanted to lift up the values of the community that truly define us. So that's November. There's some rumbling in the community. And this property that the Spencers owned, Spencer's mother approached this woman, Tanya Gersh. She's a member of the Jewish community and the only Jewish woman realtor in the area. Sherry Spencer approached Tanya to talk about selling her downtown property. Their conversations went back and forth for a while, and their discussions about how distressed Richard Spencer's mother claimed to be. And then all of a sudden she stopped communicating with Tanya. And just a short while later, we found out that the message was going out through the far right discussion boards and networks, accusing Tanya of extorting the Spencers, threatening them with protests, I guess, unless they sold their building. That was all a lie. The only truth at the core of that was that Tanya had spoken with Sherry. But they took all that, and we believe Spencer then passed the information to this man, Andrew Anglin, who's the head of the Daily Stormer, the largest Nazi website in the world. And Anglin put out a call, right? So they had this tagline that they, the white family, are the victims. Jews are targeting Richard Spencer's mother. You must take action. So he put out this call on the Daily Stormer for people to attack Tanya. And then they looked around to see who else they could attack. The images that are going to come up in a while do have some Holocaust imagery, and I just want to warn you that if that's disturbing, please, look away, and I'll be shifting away from it soon. But as we know, the white power movement, the white nationalists, they refer to the Holocaust because they want the narrative of destroying the Jewish people and the Jewish community. Anglin's call for action, this call for what he called a troll storm and what I call a cyber terrorist attack, that lasted from December 16th for the next 7 weeks. Interestingly, Anglin posted on a Friday. The next day, Saturday, Richard Spencer retweeted that. And then Sunday, David Duke retweeted and posted this. He took screenshots from CNN, which are, there's no copyright violation there. He's highlighting that I'm wearing a kippah. And he says, these are not good people, folks. There's nothing outright that meets the legal definition of a threat, but this is threatening, right? When a lead Nazi and white supremacist is telling his followers that we aren't good people, we are in danger. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, these different leaders posting and calling for attacks on our community, we started getting inundated with tweets, phone calls, and online chatter threatening us, telling people we're not good people. They should show up and tell us what we think of them. When David Duke tweets about you and puts a picture of you out on the internet, that is not something that you call home and tell your mom about. It was something that generated so much internet activity that Sunday night I had a call from Jonathan Greenblatt, the head of the ADL, from Paul Goldenberg, who was then head of Secure Community Network, which is the Homeland Security Division of Federation. And then Monday, we had a call from Richard Cohen of the Southern Poverty Law Center. I'll never forget, Paul Goldenberg calls and he's like, Rabbi, I don't know him. He's like, hey man, what's going on over there? I was like, I have no idea. Like, you tell me what's going on. The level of harassment was something never experienced before. And we really became like the canary in the coal mine in terms of the power of the white supremacists and the white power movement to threaten and harass the community. They created memes and took our pictures from Facebook. England's original posting took Tanya's picture, my picture, and this is Ina Albert. She's the wife of another rabbi in town who also is a Brandeis graduate. But the Nazis are not only anti-Semites, they're also misogynists. So they focused on the three women. They took our pictures and put yellow stars. And what I've said to people is when you're using Holocaust imagery in connection with Jewish people nowadays, that is a threat right there. You don't need to use the words, you want to kill me. You put my head in the fire and you put on a yellow star, that is threatening. And all the way back in 2017, I was trying to spread the message about this. Right? They know the law and they skirt right up to the edge. Shut it down. I take that as threatening. It doesn't meet the legal definition. All these memes and messages were to encourage people to attack us, to call us, to text us, to invade our Facebook pages. And really, England would say, show up and tell them what you think. We never knew if they were going to show up. All these images refer back to the Holocaust and are united around this conspiracy theory about Jewish control that needs to be shut down. And when they're called on that imagery, they say, oh, this is just irony, this is just humor, but there's nothing funny about this. There's nothing entertaining about this. And now, as we know, looking back, right, we wise people in January 2021, we understand that these messages and this imagery is to activate people and get them to take action. Luckily, our community had this support team of these three organizations. I spoke almost daily with a representative of each. We had like a team meeting to touch base. And Southern Poverty Law Center taught us how to collect evidence. Your impulse when you receive an anti-Semitic phone call or text message is to delete it. And they very quickly were like, don't do that. So they taught us how to gather evidence to prepare for how we could fight afterwards. Secure Community Network sent someone from Seattle, a security professional who came and stayed in our home, gave my children a sense of safety and security. And they interacted with local law enforcement. police, FBI, Homeland Security, to make sure they were all taking this seriously. And the Anti-Defamation League helped us with media relations, and were able to speak out when we did not want to. All three told us to go dark and not to respond in any way, because what these people want is attention. And unfortunately, the Jewish Forward kept reprinting whatever Anglin would print, whatever threat he would make. That would get him excited. Once the Jewish people are scared and focusing on him, that just feeds him, and he kept amping it up to the point where he went from December 16th calling for people to attack us to the end of December calling for a march on Washington. And this is a march on Whitefish. And this is the image that he used. He put our faces on the top of this gate. And he set it for Martin Luther King Day. He called it the James Earl Ray Extravaganza. And he was telling people to show up. We're an open carry state. People should come and tell us, shut us down. That was quite, I'll go away from that image. That was quite, I'm gonna stop. I'm going to stop for a sec. That was quite a scary and intimidating time. All the authorities told us, no, they're not going to show up. Anglin was saying they were hiring, they had busloads of people that were coming from California. It was pretty darn cold in Montana at that time. And there was really, well, you know what? This was before Charlottesville. They really had no capacity of imagining that they actually would show up. They kept telling us, no, they're never going to do something like that. Thankfully, our area is still prepared. Law enforcement was prepared. We were all prepared, and nothing happened. But Charlottesville was not too far past it, and that was our worst nightmare. If you remember, let me switch back. December 16th was the start of this, and December 24th was the first night of Hanukkah. And Hanukkah is our biggest event, and people were terrified and really scared. We hired armed security, and we assured people that we would be safe, and we encouraged them to come together. And my message throughout that time was, no one can take away our Jewish tradition and our Jewish ritual. No one can prevent us from lighting our candles. And if the only thing they could do was light their Chanukiah at home, totally understood. But a whole group of people showed up to empower each other and remind each other that we belong there too. What was beautiful was that the community rallied around us. This was called a basket of love. And the week after those calls for attack online, the community put out a call and encouraged people to come to the community center, to bring gifts, to make cards, and they distributed them to our 3 families to let us know that the community loved and cared for us. And that we belonged. Letters started pouring in from around the country. I have a large Facebook following, and the word spread first amongst the Jewish community. Then as it hit the press, it spread around the country. And these cards and letters really helped us through this time. Every night of Hanukkah, we got together, we read cards, we put those cards out at the Hanukkah party. And the point of terrorism is to isolate you and scare you. And these cards let us know that we weren't alone, and that there were more good people than bad people in the world. This is an image that Empower Montana created. They based it on the Billings story of when there was a Jewish family attacked in Billings, and all the families put Chanukias in their window, put menorahs in their window. They made this sign and made it a sticker, and you saw this sign go up in businesses across the state of Montana, in people's homes. I saw them in people's cars, and it was their way of standing and supporting the Jewish people and making a statement against anti-Semitism. Even the governor of our state, Steve Bullock, put one up in his office. And the governor was an extraordinary support to all of our families, and not only called me to check in and ask how things were going and to reassure that he was doing what he could, but he even came and visited Whitefish, came to my home, met with our 3 families, and he kept that absolutely secret. No one knew that he did that except our children and our families. And our kids were scared. We were all scared. But when the governor of the state is worried about you and he comes to check in on you, that was powerful. And I'll never forget that. And I always feel indebted to him. I forgot to warn you, I'm sharing my trauma story, so I do get overcome at times, but this is overcome by gratitude. So when people are attacked and terrorized, what is most important is for people in positions of power who are not being threatened, who feel safe, to stand up and say something. So I say, as Jews, if another minority is getting attacked, it's our role to stand up and stand up for them. What happened for us, remember, this is December 2016. This is our Republican and Democrat senator standing together with our Republican representative and our Republican attorney general and our Democratic governor, and they all put out a statement condemning anti-Semitism and white nationalism. Maybe was one of the last, bipartisan acts, but it was a powerful bipartisan act. And please take that lesson. People in power need to stand up and speak up for others. And what you might notice in this headline, and what I also was profoundly touched by, was the Confederated Tribes of Salish and Kootenai also put out a statement in support of the Jewish community and taking a stand against anti-Semitism. And people took notice. We had already had this Love Not Hate rally scheduled in our area because of the bigotry and hatred that was starting to get expressed after November 2016. So this was 2 weeks before Martin Luther King Day, and it was an opportunity for people to show that they stood with the Jewish community. And we had 400 people standing outside in -15-degree weather, taking a stand against hatred, 3 hours in -15 degrees, because they wanted to come and show that hatred, anti-Semitism, bigotry was not allowed. And this program was a cultural program and a celebration of the beauty of diversity. So another lesson is, when hate comes to town, you lift up your values. You don't engage with the haters. That's what they want. They want attention. You do what you can to celebrate your community and lift up and strengthen your values. What we did was, on Martin Luther King Day, we planned a party. People wanted to show up and get in the face of the Nazis, and we said, please don't do that. The town actually was told to go dark, businesses to close. And we got an indoor space, the local middle school, and we had a party. This was our theme of diversity. A friend of mine said, hey, we want to make a Jewish food for this event. Will you teach us how to make matzo balls? So the Friday before, we met in the food pantry, and I taught people how to make matzo balls. We had pots of chicken soup going on the stove. And on Martin Luther King Day, we served 350 bowls of matzo ball soup, and people came to just check in with each other, support each other, and get to know each other. They sat and talked, met each other. This is my daughter. I had Hanukkah gelt out, and we just encouraged people to get to know their neighbors and meet someone new. And again, to strengthen our community in the face of hatred. I mentioned before that Southern Poverty Law Center helped us collect evidence, and they eventually built a case. This is Tanya Gersh again. She's in the middle here, and this is her husband, Judah. Tanya received the worst of the harassment and terrorism. After a few days, they stopped harassing me, and they stopped texting and phoning me, and I blocked my Facebook, and they stopped texting and phoning the other rabbinic family, and they stayed focused on Tanya. Historic levels of harassment, you can look up the case on SPLC's website, but they sued Andrew Anglin in civil court. And in July 2019, Tanya and Southern Poverty Law Center won a judgment against Andrew Anglin. And he is, the federal judge said that he was to pay $14 million in damages to her. We don't expect, and Tanya never expected to see any money. Our hope is that we eventually shut him down and shut down the Daily Stormer. So there is always something that you can do, whether it's sending a card, bringing over some home-cooked food, standing up for people, or fighting them in court to try to make a change. I can tell you that the Jewish community here is thriving. There were some people that felt that the way to be Jewish is to keep your head down and be quiet, and they were very uncomfortable and really blamed me for this. But there were many Jews who stood up and said, we're Jews and we're going to continue to meet and gather and practice our traditions and grow together. This is Rabbi Alan Stetcher. He's the retired rabbi, his wife Ina, they live here. And this is Rabbi Lori Franklin in Missoula. We've formed an organization of congregations in Montana, and we do advocacy and programs together. We have a Shabbat across Montana this Friday. This is from a family retreat that we did, and our congregation has just been growing and showing its resiliency. So whether we're out hiking on the mountains, or whether we're out in the middle of the field doing Havdalah, this was our ending program at the end of Yom Kippur. You can't see the people, but this was a drive-in Ne'ilah service, and we had 8 cars, 8 households gathered together in this field to end Yom Kippur, and did like a breakfast picnic. So we're all finding our way through this pandemic and showing resiliency, and the Glacier Jewish Community as well has come through that attack. We, I think, have a great clarity about what's most important to us as Jews and as a community, and it really has taught us how we can stand up in the face of hatred. So I hope you find some of that inspiring. I hope if you ever find yourself traveling through the Flathead Valley and visiting Glacier that you'll look us up. And I'm happy to take any questions that you have.
I received just a few questions here, so I will start with those. And then if you have other questions, you can continue to post them in the chat. Alternatively, you can ask them directly to Rabbi Roston. So we'll start with this one. And you did answer this in part. We like to talk about how love will triumph over hate, but progress in that regard has been slow at best. Is there a better approach than fighting back against the Richard Spencers of the world, other than full prosecution and conviction under the law? Someone added that the Southern Poverty Law Center which you mentioned has used civil suits for money damages as a successful strategy. And you did mention how people in power and privilege have a responsibility to stand up. Do you have some other ideas of how to approach or combat this?
Yeah, so strong communities keep hatred out. And I think the most important is to build up community relations. Um, when I speak to and trained rabbis, I taught for a bit at the seminary. We tell people make make relationships with law enforcement before something happens. Look, every Jewish community is wise enough to have a relationship with law enforcement nowadays. But what I think is most important is actually making relations with your neighbors. We stand up for the people we know. When we get to know people, we can find shared values and shared experiences. After the shooting in Poway, we had a rally about Yom HaShoah. We had a rally against anti-Semitism, and we held it at the Church of Jesus Christ of the Latter-day Saints. And my Christian colleagues were like, "You're having it there?" Like, and even other Jews have been surprised that I would partner with them. But their community, we've formed a relationship, and we have done social action projects together. And when a call went out that a family needed help, it was the Mormons and the Jews who showed up to do the work. So we have just an appreciation for each other as community members beyond theology, and then we can have those other discussions as well. So strengthening your community, interfaith relations, and look, being safe. Notice I didn't tell you to reach out to the Richard Spencers of the world. I don't believe there's any purpose to that, and I even think it's dangerous. I think we do have to learn how to build relationships and bridges with different political groups. But those guys aren't political groups. Those are now people are finally calling them domestic terrorist groups. Minimally, they're extremist groups. Anyone in the white power movement, those aren't the people you need to build relationships with. So first be safe, then build healthy, strong relationships so that you can all stand together and lift up the best values that we all share. I think I saw some questions about kosher food.
Yeah, I'll move down the list. There was someone said there's a good irony with gefilte fish and whitefish.
Yes, we used to joke we were going to have the gefilte fish ranch in Whitefish, Montana. Mind you, no one knows what smoked whitefish is here, and the bagels are awful. I don't know what the bagels are like in Denver. Bagels are awful. My husband calls them dinner rolls with belly buttons. And we import bagels. There's one health food store that has bagels, frozen bagels from New York that we get, and sometimes we order from Save Bars. The way we get whitefish salad is I order it from a kosher grocery store in Seattle, and that's how we get kosher meat. I order it, they freeze my order and put it on an Alaska Airlines flight, and I pick up my kosher groceries at the airport. The closest Trader Joe's is in Spokane. So I used to every couple months drive to Spokane. Yeah, now we just get it at the airport.
So we're pretty, at least I'd say, partially fortunate in the bagel department, but we do have a kosher bagel store that's been in operation here for quite a while. I think you answered a question around access to kosher items. I don't know if you have anything else to add there.
And I don't know how many of you are transplants to Denver and how many, were born and raised there. But when we said we were moving to Montana, people in New Jersey and our family in Chicago and Detroit were like, Montana? What do you mean? Are there Jews in Montana? How can you keep kosher in Montana or keep Shabbat? Well, look, you can keep kosher and keep Shabbat anywhere you go, right? That's you and what you do. And there are Jews everywhere, as we know. What's really interesting is every Passover and every High Holy Days, there are Jewish people that just sort of pop out, like they just decided, like now they want to connect. And often I'll be like, oh, when did you move to the Valley? 3 years ago, but like now they're ready and they found their way and they're ready to connect. So yeah, there's Jewish community to be made anywhere, and so we don't have kosher meat. Both my kids became vegans, and my husband doesn't like it anyway, so I make chicken for myself every once in a while. It's no big deal. Do my congregants rely on hunting deer or elk? They actually, I have some people who hunt deer and elk and who eat that meat, and those are kosher animals that are not being killed in a kosher manner, but eating off the land does have value and sacred purpose for some people. I think we're one of only a few in the community that only eats kosher meat.
I have another one.
Yeah.
How much do you think Trump contributed to the troubles in Whitefish?
So Richard Spencer and his white nationalist movement were active and going on for a long time. A lot of that activity was more on the internet, and he would have this gathering in DC. It never had more than 25, 50 people. And he had 200 plus after Trump was elected. I hold everyone who stands up and takes a hateful stance and threatens others, I hold them responsible for their actions. And look, yes, things were worse and things got dangerous when President Trump gave those groups cover. But the responsibility is on all of us to do what we can to fight it. And Richard Spencer, yes, he does live in Whitefish. Look, one of the good things about the pandemic is I don't walk around town, so I don't have to worry about bumping into him in town, and my husband doesn't have to worry about bumping into him in the health club. What was interesting when we moved here, people knew him and knew what he was about. And there was this, and I don't know if you have this in Colorado, there's this live and let live. We don't talk politics, we don't talk religion, live and let live, and we can all just be good neighbors. So no one ever said anything to him. But after this, first they attacked our 3 families, then they threatened the Jewish community. Well, then they threatened the whole town and they started attacking businesses. And people really felt it. It wasn't just the Jews suffering through this. And now when Spencer shows up somewhere, most often at least one person is telling him he's unwelcome. And there are businesses in town that will not serve him. And any business that does serve him, they have policies that the barista or the server doesn't have to do it if they feel uncomfortable and unsafe, and the manager does it in the businesses where they won't block him. So yeah, I think that groups need to be held accountable, and they need to have social consequences to being aligned with these hate groups. We did find out that there were local people in the community that we knew who were active on this Daily Stormer site and who were part of the attacks. We were told that most of the threats were from California, Florida, Texas, people around the country at their keyboards. But there were some local people. And when we found out about them, we informed law enforcement. One of them happened to be the father of my son's best friend. Father of my son's best friend was active in this. And we had to tell my son, and we had to tell him that he couldn't go to his house and that he couldn't come over our house. And we didn't know if the son knew about his father, but the man was called to give a deposition in the lawsuit, and then knew that he was outed. And he moved out of town a few months later. that summer, the summer of 2019. And I don't feel too bad about that. You should have social consequences for threatening violence and bringing danger to your community.
I think that answers the question of if Richard Spencer still lives in Whitefish.
Yeah, is there? Are there other groups that seem to be a threat? There have always been white supremacist activity in the Pacific Northwest. There's always been white supremacist activity, white power movements, survivalist movements, the Oath Keepers. Stuart Rhodes was active in Montana for a while. 3 Percenters are here. Pioneers for a Little Europe are here. The nice thing about these groups, sort of weird to start a sentence about them. The nice thing about them is they fight with each other and they splinter and break up pretty frequently. And so they're pretty weak. They were pretty weak after they attacked us because they have lots of pressure from the community, from law enforcement, and that really weakened them. Unfortunately, with militia movements and the empowerment that they were given by the president in the past year, that there has been a sense of danger and threat. But again, the pandemic has sort of helped us all out in that sense. Not too many conflicts.
Have you had any conversion requests, either in or out?
In or out?
Yeah.
Once a Jew, always a Jew.
Yeah, I guess you wouldn't have, they wouldn't say much to you if they wanted out.
Well, there were people, like I said, there were people who left the congregation because of all of the attacks. But that picture of the 2 other rabbis and I, that was our Beit Din for a conversion that we did for 3 adults and 1 child. And I do often have at least 1 conversion student. And right now I don't have a bar bat mitzvah student, but in the past I've had about 1 a year. Yeah. We have Jews for Jesus. They call themselves Messianic Jews. They do inquire, but I draw a really clear line and let them know that if they believe in Jesus as the Savior and as the Messiah, then we're not really the right place for them. Just want to let you know, I do often look, I hope all of this quiets down and we start putting the hateful people hopefully they disperse and see the error of their ways. But I do serve as a consultant to communities if they're dealing with hate and dealing with cyber terrorism, and feel free to let people know that they can be in touch with me. I'm easy to find, rabbi@glacierjc.org. So I try to give back because the Jewish community of North America was really here for us, and I try to do what I can if people need help. So thank you all. It's good to be with you and meet you in this new cyber world.